Happy Thursday, good people. Double the Innocence with your boy E-Dub here. Gem dropper and a definite showstopper. I'm gonna wait a couple minutes to see if there's gonna be anybody that's gonna come up here and check anything out, and then I'm gonna get into it. Cause I got a question for NBA fans out there, especially anybody that grew up in the 90s. Any individuals that grew up in the 90s, I got a question for you guys. NBA fans that grew up in the 90s. Watch 90s basketball. Watch Michael Jordan. Watched Isaiah Thomas. Watch Magic Johnson. I got a question for you cats out here. So I'm going to wait to see if I can get a couple of you guys in the building before I ask this question, instead of me having to ask it 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 different times. Just going to wait and see if I get a couple people up in this mix. Anybody out there from the 80s, 90s basketball. You grew up in that era. Got a question for you NBA fans. Any one of you guys. Calling once, calling twice. I got a question for any of you individuals out there that grew up in the 80s or the 90s watching NBA basketball. This question is for you cats. Any one of you guys. Any one of you guys. I don't care who it is. Got a question for you guys. Yeah. I got a question. Because with all this conversation of him talking about, this whole LeBron James possibly being on the juice, it made me start to think, like, anybody who grew up in the 80s and the 90s and watched that type of basketball, do you think any of those guys might have been taking something? I mean, you gotta think there was some pretty big beasts back in those days. The Davis boys that played for Indiana, hey, you understand what I'm saying? You had Kevin Willis. If anybody remembers Kevin Willis, he played a little stint out in Toronto, but the majority of his time he played playing alongside Dominique Wilkins. That was a beast of a man. I'm just saying. Here we are, we're talking about, like I said, unfortunately, LeBron James is the one taking the grunt of the hit of this and all that kind of stuff. But then when you sit down and you talk about, players that may or may not have been on any kind of enhancements, think about those individuals that we grew up watching back in the days. I'm going to mention it again. Kevin Willis, a beast. The Davis boys, both of them that played for Indiana. Alonzo Mourning, Grandmama, Anthony Mason. These are just names, just to mention a few. When you looked at the stature of them, I mean, they were bodybuilders walking around in NBA uniforms. I'm just saying, man. I mean, hey, we could stick to one topic conversation and keep talking about, LeBron James, but if we're keeping everything real and we're going to question LeBron James on whether or not he may or may not be on anything that might help him, have his longevity in the league, we got to think about those cats that we grew up watching. Anthony Masons of the world. I mean, Charles Oakley. These weren't no little statues of men. And these are just names I'm ripping off the top of my head. But if you sit down and really think about some of the role players that came off the bench, I mean, you got to understand, there's a different type of stature. For example, like a Darryl Dawkins. You could tell that was just brute strength, because he was just one of those guys that came from possibly someplace down deep in the South, and he just looked like a strong dude. Charles Barkley, he looked like a physically strong dude. They look country strong. But like I said, man, I mean, I remember growing up and looking at an individual like Kevin Willis and saying, hey, You got to think twice to be thinking to take the ball to the hoop with this man standing in the middle. When you had him and Tree Rollins down low. But I mean, just his stature, just the way he looked would intimidate you and not want you to attack the rim the way in which you would think about attacking the rim. In my humble opinion. So, I mean, hey, if we're going to keep everything real, we're going to keep it in the element that it needs to be kept in. Yes, we do have to question the proclaimed king. T. Gender, hello. Hi. Julie, hello. Hi. Little native, LeBron. Yeah, LeBron, I mean, you know, it's very easy for us to really take cheap shots at him. And he makes it very easy for us to take those cheap shots at him. But if you sit down and think about it realistically speaking, I mean, there's a possibility that we might have been overlooking. There's a possibility, and that's all it is. A possibility that we might have been looking this substance abuse in the NBA for a very long time. And we just didn't care till we cared. Is that right? Is that fair? On a humane stance, is that right? Is that fair of us to do? Because we didn't question it back then. We didn't really care about it back then. I just remember finding it very ironic that these individuals that look like I said, bodybuilders walking around in NBA uniforms, how that was possible. Because, you know, as a young teenager at that particular point in time, playing high school basketball or outdoor basketball or whatever, I don't think I would have ever been able to really play it with that type of mass on me. But hey, that's just me. That's just me. All that's just my humble opinion. Do you think that those guys in the 90s might have been taking something? Is it possible? Especially back then when they weren't under a microscope with every single thing that they did. Because I mean, you know, like anybody in my era heard the stories of when Michael Jordan first joined the Chicago Bulls, all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes and whatnot, and that happened to have been something that was running rapid in the NBA at that particular point in time. That lifestyle, that type of living. So if that lifestyle and that type of living was running rapid in the NBA at that particular point in time, is it not possible that enhancement abuse was also taking place at that particular point in time and been overlooked? Is it not possible? And I'm just playing devil's advocate right now. I'm just asking that question because I remember seeing some beasts of men playing back then. Alonzo Mourning, I watched him from Georgetown, so I got to see a certain transformation in his physique, in the way in which he looked. Grandmama, Larry Johnson, I watched him from UNLV come into the NBA. Although he always had that frame. So to actually start working out, doing weights and all that kind of stuff to turn into that type of monster, it wouldn't have been that much of a change for him. What? Are you serious? Local 416. R.I.P. Hulk Hogan. I'm not sure if this is actual fact. If this is actual facts, if it is. Wow. Hulkamania. If it is. And if there's anybody else I could confirm this in the chats, please do me a favor. Just put a 1 up in the chats if this is actual facts. before I really say anything else about it, please let me know. Wow, that one hits a little bit different too, boy. Whoa. If it is facts, somebody please let me know. Local 416, if you're still around, please let me know. Are you trolling, or is this actual facts? Somebody just put in the comment section, rest in peace, Hulk Hogan. So, please, somebody out there, let me know. Wow. Ruined my whole train of thought one right there, boy. If that is true, I grew up watching Hulk Hogan. So, I wouldn't quite say I was a Hulkamaniac, but I grew up watching him. So if there is any actual facts to that, please, somebody let me know. Somebody let me know. Somebody let me know, please. If I can't find out in the chat. Anyways, I'm about to get off of this right now and I'm going to go do my own personal research to find out if that's true. The question's still out there, people. Please, let me know. Do you think that there's a possibility in the 90s we missed out on players that might have been using personal enhancements? Like I said, we had the Kevin Willises of the world that he looked like a beast. We had the Davis boys out there in Indiana. These are just guys at the top of my mind right now that I remember growing up watching. I remember watching Larry Johnson. He looked like a beast. Anthony Mason, a beast. Is it possible that this was stuff that was happening way back then that we just never paid any attention to? And now, because it's attached to an individual like the proclaimed king, now we're making a big deal about it? Is it possible? Somebody let me know, man. I'm telling you, man, that's Local 416 put something in the chat telling me rest in peace Hulk Hogan, and I'm not sure if it's actual facts. Somebody please let me know if it's true. If I can't find out here, I'm about to end this live right now to go find out. I'm about to end this live now to go find out. That being said, people, I want you guys to have yourself a blessed day. Stay safe out there. Double the Innocence with your boy E-Dub is out. Have a blessed day, peeps.